Welcome to New Teacher Big Impact, the podcast. I am former terrible teacher turned two-time Teacher of the Year, Daryl Williams Jr. And today, would you rather teach 5 days a week at your current salary or 4 days a week for a little bit less? The data is in and the answer might surprise you. And then it's thought that a 2-hour mile is impossible because that's just an unsustainable pace. But are you teaching at a sustainable pace so that you can teach all the content that you need to over the course of the year? And lastly, I'm going to be answering a community question that asks, how do we incentivize students after the Taki budget ran out? All of that on today's episode of New Teacher Big Impact, the podcast. Impact begins now. We're getting it started with This Week in Education, which is the segment where we talk about some trends that are happening in the world of education right here, right now, and how they impact you. And today, we're talking about a 4-day teaching work week and what the data actually says about districts that implement it. But before we dive into that, it is my time to let you know about our sponsor of this season, which is Impact. Again, Impact is like if Netflix and Facebook were to have a baby and everything that it was centered on was how to become a better teacher. All the content, all the streaming, everything that you're looking at, all the courses that you're learning is all about how to improve your efficacy in the classroom. But then there's a supportive community that you can talk to, that you can ask questions to, that you can support each other, that you can help each other on our educational journey. All that wrapped up all together is known as Impact. And you can get started in Impact by clicking the link in the description below. Super excited for this. We are over 100 members strong at this point and super excited that you are considering joining us. Get started today for just $13. That's it, just $13. Here we go, the warning bell. The warning bell. You know me, I'm gonna read it off of my phone. So, 4-day work week and their surprising effect on teacher turnover. We just read this article and thought it was super interesting. So, districts are making a move towards a 4-day work week because they want to increase teacher recruitment and retention. They think that by telling teachers we only attend school with students for 4 days a week, that'll entice teachers to work in their district. And not only entice them, which is the recruitment piece, but also would encourage them to stay, which is the retention piece. Now, there are schools all over the nation that have already been implementing this and not even relatively new. There's some that have been doing it since 2007 and maybe even before that, but the research studied schools in Oregon that have started doing this in 2007, and now we have over 15 years worth of data, and the data is very, very interesting. As of right now, about 2,100 schools nationwide are currently implementing a 4-day teaching work week, and I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. We hear nothing of that. Like that is just mind-boggling to me. I'll be super excited. I'm interested to see, comment down below if you are in a school that has a 4-day work week or if you're in a district that has a 4-day work week. Because to me, that just sounds like a dream. It sounds amazing. I get a 3-day weekend every weekend. The most exciting weeks for teachers are when we know we have a 3 or 4-day weekend coming up. So if that is a 3-day weekend every single week over the course of the year, I just can't imagine how that is, which is why I'm interested to see what the data says. All right. So when they survey teachers, most teachers were like me. 2/3 of the teachers surveyed said that they would prefer to work in a school that was only in session 4 days out of the week, right? Which is cool, right? Which is amazing. And again, that is definitely something that I would opt for. Now, like I said, we did the study. Well, not we, I wasn't there, but EdWeek did the study in Oregon because right now in Oregon, 40% of their schools have adopted a 4-day work week since 2007 in this district. So in more than 15 years of data, here's what they found. Watch this. Immediately after the district switches to a 4-day work week, in that year, they actually saw a 2% increase in teacher turnover, which means teachers are leaving at a higher rate, 2%, at a higher rate compared to districts that have a 5-day work week. Now, in the 1 to 4 years after the adoption, they noticed that teacher turnover remained the same as districts that hadn't adopted it. All right, so the districts that went to a 5-day work week or the districts that went to a 4-day work week, if teachers were working there between 1 and 4 years, the turnover rate was about the same, right? Negligible difference. But watch this. After 5 years, so for the districts that implemented this, after 5 years, they actually saw a 4% increase in teacher turnover compared to the districts that didn't implement a 4-day work week. So what does that mean? That means as soon as the switch is made in that first year, 2% are teachers, 2% of teachers are more likely to leave the district that moved to a 4% work week. 4-day, why I keep saying that? A 4-day work week. And after 5 years or more, there's actually twice that, a 4% more likely that the teachers are going to leave, which is interesting to me because, again, 2/3 of teachers are saying this is something that I would like, something I would value. I'd love to work on a 4-day work week schedule. But the data actually shows that teachers are leaving at a higher rate, which is counterintuitive or counterproductive if we're talking about recruitment and retention. So what do we think the reason might be? Watch this. So it seems like a 4-day work week would be a good idea until you realize that with the reduced number of working days comes a reduction in salary. And maybe we're thinking that if we go to a 4-day work week, we keep the same teaching salary. We just only work 4 days a week. But actually what's happening in these districts is they're looking at the amount of working days that you are acquiring or accruing. And they're saying, well, it's not equivalent to those in districts that are working 5 days a week, so they're actually making a lower salary. Maybe that is something that they didn't anticipate or something that they didn't think would be that big of a factor. But the reality of the situation is, once teachers notice that and start weighing the pros and cons, that they're realizing I might as well work on a 5-day work week. And then there's some other factors as well, especially for those with children. So now if I'm only working on a 4-day work week, now I'm at home. Maybe either I'm at home with my children on Friday or on that last day of the week, or they have to go somewhere and I still have to get up and take them, or really, maybe some people are realizing with the reduction in salary, now I have to do things like DoorDash and Uber on my day off. And maybe somebody's saying, well, it doesn't make sense to have a day off every week if that day off is spent with me doing Uber or Lyft or DoorDash to make sure that I'm making up the salary that I'm missing. So maybe once they started weighing the pros and cons, they realized that they were not actually making that big of a difference. They also noticed that in those districts, it was actually hurting some of the surrounding areas with the schools that have adopted a 4-day work week, because things like home values were actually, home values were actually going down. And one of the reasons why is because if you think about it, the reason why people invest in real estate a lot of times has to do with the schools that are in the district. If you have poor schools or bad schools, a lot of times people aren't really excited to move into that area, so it hurts real estate. Now I'm thinking, man, if you have a 4-day work week, if I'm somebody who is I work 5 days a week, I'm not in education, but my children are home every Friday, now I have to think about childcare for my child on Friday, especially if I have young children, 6, 7, 8 years old. So I'm like, what am I going to do? Maybe I won't move into this district. I'll move into a district where they have childcare 5 days a week, or where they'll be in school for 5 days a week. So it's very interesting that the different layers that are peeled back as a result of switching to a 4-day work week. But for me, my reaction, I was actually interested until I realized that there was a reduction in salary. I think I'm good where I'm at. Like, I don't want to go down. You know what I'm saying? So I don't mind going in 5 days a week, making the salary that I'm making. I don't think I want to sacrifice. Well, I mean, if we miss 1 day a week for the entire year, how would it be? There 40 weeks in a year? So 40 I'm missing, was that 15%, 10 to 15% of my salary? I don't know. I don't know if that's something that I want to do. So for me, it's not necessarily a move that I would make unless the salary was going to remain the same. It's not a move I want to make if the salary would make the same. But what does it mean for teachers? Like, what is the reaction for us? The thing that I would say is the grass is not always greener on the other side. All right. Sometimes we're sitting here, man, on a Friday, like, I wish we didn't have to come into work today. I wish I was in one of those districts where they had Fridays off, right? Or students aren't in the building on Fridays, or whatever it is. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side, because we see that people that are in these systems are actually leaving at the same or greater rate than those who are in a traditional 5-day-a-week system. So what that means is focus on how to make the situation that you are in the best possible situation. There's no such thing as a life that's better than yours. Shout out to J. Cole, right? There's no such thing as a life that's better than yours. What matters is how you play the hands that you are dealt, and focusing on how to really maximize that situation. There's no perfect situation, but if you are in a 5-day work week and you're getting stressed out, you're getting burnt out, you're getting overwhelmed, there are moves that you can make to actually reduce the stress, burnout, and overwhelm. And that is really improving your practice as an educator. And that's great because we are heading into this segment called Teacher Toolbox, where I'm going to help give you some strategies and some principles that you can add to your toolbox to help you become a more effective teacher. And today we are continuing on our conversation about effective lesson planning, and we're going to talk about the PACE framework, how to pace over throughout the year to make sure that you teach all the content that needs to be taught so that student engagement is increased. So we'll dive into the Teacher Toolbox right after this.
Never underestimate your teaching. There's 1% that sets you apart from everybody else, and that 1% is how you're going to make your impact.
He was exciting, funny. He is just real.
This was like monumental.
If you view your 1% as if it's a deficiency, you'll operate as if it is. But if you view your 1% as if it's your amazing, you'll operate with confidence. And I need some more people as we step into this next school year to walk confidently knowing that your differences are not your deficiencies. Your differences are not your drawbacks. Your differences are not your downfalls. But when you let your differences live, that's when you can make a difference in students' lives. I can't wait to see these teachers enact their 1% amazing and make the difference that only they can. If you would like for your school district to be empowered as well, you can click the link down below and our team will reach out to you.
Why does pacing even matter? Well, let me put it like this. My daughter is 5 years old right now, and I remember when she was learning how to write her name, her name is Nyelle. It's spelled N-Y-E-L-L-E. Beautiful name. I love it. That's my girl, right? I have a son too. His name is Joel. He's 2. Don't want to pretend like I'm not talking about him. But Nyelle's name, N-Y-E-L-L-E, as she was spelling it out, she would write her name on her paper, and she would always put a big N right in the middle of the paper. Like, okay, baby, write your name. She would put N, then she put a big Y right next to it, then she put a big E right next to it, and then look up and realize that there's no more space to put the last 3 letters. So sometimes she would either try to squeeze them in really small, or she would go to the next line and try to put them down there. So now it's N-Y-E-L-L-E, right? And when she started writing, she didn't think about how much space it was going to take up. She just started writing, and she didn't pace out herself or space out the amount of space that she would need to effectively get her whole name on one line succinctly, with all the letters being within proportion with each other. She's 5, it's okay. You're a teacher. How many times have we started the year strong with this one big standard, and we want to stay with it and stick with it until students get it, until they understand it, until they got it, and then we go on to the next one, then we go on to the next one, and we realize we don't have a whole lot of days left in the year. So now either we're putting in those letters small and trying to squeeze them in, which means we're rushing through some of the content, we're rushing through some of the standards, briefly giving an overview of it to squeezing them by the end of the year, or we're sliding it to the next line or sliding it to the next year and saying that's something that your teacher's going to pick up next year. When in reality, the next year the teacher's going to say, you should have learned this by the time you got to me. We're picking up with 4th grade standards. We're picking up with 8th grade standards, whatever. We're not going back to the grade before. And now students really never got those standards that we didn't really get to. So pacing is super important, because while we want to make sure that we stick with it or stay with the content until students get it, the reality of the situation is we need to make sure that we are teaching all of the standards, that students have an opportunity to experience all the things that need to be taught as it relates to their grade level standards before they go into the next school year. One, that's going to help them be successful this year and improve student achievement data. But 2, it's going to help set them up for success as they're moving forward into the next year, because they have the foundational knowledge that they need. But how? How do we even pace out the year? I can't anticipate what students are going to need to know. I can't anticipate how long students are going to have to stay on this topic. How can I truly pace out the year? Well, here's our attempt at doing that. And we're going to dive into a framework that I titled the PACE framework, P-A-C-E. We're going to break it down into a 4-letter acronym to help you to remember it. And as a matter of fact, I'll link in the description below this PACE framework guide PDF that you can download. You can have access to it just to make it easier for you to really understand. But as I'm talking through this, remember, this is lesson number 3 in our 7-lesson course on properly planned effective lessons, which lives on the Impact platform. So if you found value in the last 2 weeks where we were talking about the foundation of lesson planning, we're talking about how to make your lessons more effective, and now we're getting to how we pace throughout the year. If you're finding value in that, definitely look into Impact to make sure you can get access to the full course. All right. But since you're here, let's dive into what we're talking about now. The P in the PACE framework stands for plan the standards. Plan the standards. What does that mean? You're going to start by planning out what needs to be taught. We talked about the fact that, you can finish my sentence, standards are the foundation, curriculum is a resource. So we know that standards are the foundation. What we want to make sure is we identify the power standards that students need to know over the course of that year. Why the power standards? I want students to know everything. I have to teach everything to students, and that's beautiful. That's amazing, and you should have that desire. But the reality is there are some strongers that are more powerful or they stand stronger than the others. And the reason why is because it'll allow for retention of another objective. So there are some standards that, man, if students really get this one, it'll make this next standard easier because they have such of a proficiency on that one. So what are the standards that the rest of them are built on? Speaking about this grade level and even the next one. So for example, I mean, students in third grade, I don't know why third grade is on my mind right now, but in third grade, we really need them to get the concepts of even and odd and grouping and trying and repeated addition and understanding the how multiplication works. Because when they go into the next grade level, we're just using multiplication, right? In fourth grade, we're just using it. Now we have multi-digit. We have 3-digit by 2-digit. You have to understand, you're using algorithms to understand how to get across an answer, a product using multiplication. So that's a power standard in third grade to make sure students can multiply. You see what I'm saying? So what are power standards? Identify what those things are and order them with intention, meaning you don't just have to go based off the standard document in alphabetical order or in order of how it's listed. What is a logical order that makes sense for you and your students so that you understand how to build over the year, right? What should I teach early so that I can consistently revisit it throughout the course of the year as we spiral so that it can support some other standards? And for those of us who are saying, well, I have a curriculum that I have to stick to. They told me to stay with this particular curriculum. Awesome. Just make sure that, again, that curriculum is still aligned with the standards and make sure that the flow is making sense. If your district is saying that you have to use this curriculum and remain with this particular curriculum, you probably can't change the flow. You probably can't. But you can still identify what the power standards are and highlight the areas that you need to put emphasis on to make sure that students really, really get this. All right. So the P stands for plan the standards. And a quick tip here is that if you're unsure of what we just talked about, how do I even know, Daryl? How do I find the power standards? Consult a veteran teacher, right? Or reach out to a community like Impact, where we have veteran teachers as well as new teachers, experienced teachers, people that are instructional coach, administrators. Reach out to people in Impact. Say, hey, I'm teaching third grade this year. I don't know, third grade's on my mind still. I'm teaching third grade this year. What are the power standards that I definitely need to focus in on, right? Ask those questions and people can help you out. It's great to ask questions of people who have been where you are and are where you eventually want to be, right? That's a great idea to do. So that's the P. The A stands for allocate instructional time. Allocate the instructional time. So you want to map out the year, because on paper, it may say you have 180 days in a school year. It may say you have 178. But when you really think about it, those are not all instructional days, right? Because first of all, especially if we're grades 3 and up where we're testing oftentimes happens within the last 10 days of the school year. So we can take 10 days off the top, right? So let's just use the number 180. Let's just say you have 180 days, but actually testing starts on day 170. Okay, you actually only have 170 instructional days, because after testing we're not instructing for the test, right? And even before that, those are not the only reasons. You still don't have 170 days because you still have professional development days built in. You still have some pep rallies. You have book fairs. You have field trips. You have events, activities. You have so many different things that are taken away from your instructional time. So what I'm literally saying is, first start with a raw blank calendar and just how many days do we have? Then start taking away the days where you know there will be no instruction going on, right? You know you're going to have a holiday party before the break, right? Let's not pretend like that's an instructional day. So once you really start taking those away, you might really realize you're down to 154, 149. Like you might start seeing, wow, this is really the amount of time that I have allocated. Okay. And then also, as you're doing that, you want to make sure that you build in some buffer time, because maybe I'm teaching all the content, maybe not up until the day of the test. Maybe I'm giving myself a week before the test to do some spiral review. So in that case, that's not instruction of new material. That's 5 days that we're using intentionally for a spiral review. So maybe we take those days off, right? So just build in some buffer time around testing, around benchmarks, around the end of the quarter, around the start of the year, those types of things. Build in a couple of buffer days where, like, okay, this may not be instruction of new material. This may be a recapping type of situation. So keep those in mind, because what it's going to do is it's going to show you exactly how many instructional days you actually have. Okay. Now, the C in the PACE framework. I hope this is helpful. I hope that you're seeing how this starts to work. The P stands for plan the standards. What are the standards I need to teach? A, allocate the instructional time. How many days do I actually have? C is to now calendarize the standards, all right? So now, calendarize is a word. Look it up. It works. It works for the C. I was trying to make an acronym that you can remember, all right? So C, calendarize the standards. Once you see how many days you actually have, boom. Now we're going to start putting those things on the calendar. We're going to say, all right, so for this week, we're going to cover this standard. We're going to boom. These are the objectives on that. Boom, boom, boom. All right. And you can get as granular as you want. You can cover say this is the standard. It's going to take us 4 weeks on this standard. It's going to take us 3.5 weeks on this standard. Or you can literally say this standard is going to be 4 weeks, and these are the objectives that we have for those 4 weeks. Get as granular as you need to make sure that you calendarize and pace out what you need to do. Again, how are we determining how much time we're going to spend on each? That goes back to P, planning out the standards. What are the focus areas? What are the things when you spoke to other people in Impact, or when you spoke to other people in your school, that they said, yes, students really typically struggle with this. You're going to probably need a little bit more time on that, right? Those are now you're incorporating that, what you learned in step 1 in the P. Now you're implementing that in C. Like, you're putting the P and the A together here in C. We're saying, okay, so these are the power standards. This is probably gonna take me a long time. This one I can probably touch really quickly because they mastered it in 2nd grade or whatever it is. And boom, now we're looking at the allocating the time, how many days I have. Now we're putting it out on the calendar, okay? One of the things that you wanna make sure you do is avoid missteps, like starting a new standard on a Friday before break. That's probably not a really good idea. So as you're allocating things and you're seeing how much time you have and you see a day there, maybe we make that a review day. Right? It's the day before break. A third of the class is going to be absent because they already went out on vacation and families started traveling or whatever it is. Maybe we're not going to pretend like this is a new instructional day where we're going to start new information, go away for 2 weeks and come back and students retained it. Okay. So look out for things like that as you're putting them there on the calendar. Okay, and then lastly is the E. E is going to be evaluate and adjust, meaning stay flexible. No matter how much time you put into this, whether you put 30 minutes into it, whether you put 3 hours into it, and you come away with a color-coded, beautiful calendar that tells you what to do on each and every day, and you feel confident and you're ready to go, no matter how much time you put into it, you are actually probably going to have to make some adjustments based on how students actually perform. So even when you anticipate this is going to take us 3.5 weeks, it may take you the full 4. But what does that mean? Well, luckily you've already looked at the calendar and said, man, we really only have 140 instructional days. You can't add more days onto the year. You're not going to take away the field trip so that you can have another day, right? You can't slide standardized testing down in the year. So looking at what you have, you can't create more time. You can only maximize the time that you have. So that's when you make adjustments like, okay, we're gonna have to take a day off of this standard and we're gonna have to extend this one more. Whatever it is, it's a living document. You have to be able to make those adjustments. And when things get tight, we have to make some hard calls and say, students are not ready to move on to the next standard. Students don't have what they need. It's not in fingertip reach. Remember, we talked about that last week. It's not in fingertip reach, right? I can't move on to the next standard, but how can I maximize the time that we have? What are some creative ways that I can make sure that students get this material, because we're running out of days? It might be October and you're looking at the calendar saying, I don't have a whole lot of flexible days. So we can incorporate some things finding other times to get things done, or ramping up the Bloom's taxonomy, or like really focusing in on hitting it hard during the classroom with the engagement and utilizing some other resources. Maybe what you're working isn't really clicking with students. Now we're making some different curricular decisions, right? We're asking other people what are some things that have helped them in the past. But it's great that, again, it's a living document. So once you see that things are starting to the time is starting to get tight, you have to get out in front of that and realize there's some moves I need to make. There's some things I have to do in order to make sure that students actually grasp this material, because we've got to move on, right? Again, it is not, I don't want you to, as I'm brushing through this, I don't want you to hear me and think that I'm being insensitive. I think it is super important that students hear and understand, that students gain and retain and understand the information, right? It's also important that students are exposed to and have the opportunity to receive all that grade level content that they were supposed to, or that they were promised, as a result of being in this grade level. So it's on the teacher to make sure that you find creative ways to make sure that students are grasping and retaining the information. All right, and that is what we are going to continue diving into next week, when we talk about how do we even know if students are grasping the material, so that I can make those decisions on whether to stay or whether to move on. But that was the PACE strategy. P, remember, that stands for plan the standards. Then A, we're going to allocate the instructional time. C, we are going to calendarize the standards. And E, we're going to evaluate and adjust along the way. And next week, we're going to talk about how do we even decide whether to stick or whether to move on, as relates to what students know and what students need. All right, and that's going to come in next week's Teacher Toolbox. But the segment that we are coming up on right now is actually the new Teacher Tip of the Week, which is one of my favorite segments, because I get to share a game-changing strategy that you can use right here, right now, implement it into your classroom so that you can make a dramatic change with just a little tweak. So I'll get to the new teacher quick tip of the week right after this. Good teachers teach subjects, but great teachers teach students. Not only is that something that I truly believe and something I love saying, but it's something that I also love wearing on my shirt, and now you can too, because the Pursuit of Excellence shop is open. DarylWilliamsJr.shop. The link is in the show notes and in the description down below, where you'll find designs just like this and all of our other popular sayings, such as I'm smarter than I think, I'm braver than I seem, I'm stronger than I feel, and I can do hard things, or everything is figure outable, right? Or the former terrible teacher, or new teacher, big impact. All the things that you'll see, whether it's white, it's blue, it's black, so many different options, t-shirts, hoodies, all the things that you can look for, where you can show people your support for how much you truly care for and love students, and that you're becoming the teacher you've always wanted to be. Click the link below or in the description and show notes to go to the store and find your design. It's time for the new teacher quick tip of the week, and this quick tip is for you to create a rebound strategy. Create a rebound strategy. What does that mean? Mike Tyson once said, I quoted J. Cole earlier, I'm quoting Mike Tyson now. I don't know what's going on in this podcast, but we're having a good time. Mike Tyson once said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? What does that mean? Mike Tyson was a famous boxer. Still is, actually. He's old, but he's still out there. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, meaning you go in there, you plan, you prepare, you're ready, but then you get in there and then you get punched in the face, and that plan kind of goes out the window, and you're like, what do I even do now? So if everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, everybody should also have a plan once they get punched in the face. That's Daryl Williams Jr. That's not Mike Tyson. What I mean by that is, we understand teaching is hard. We understand burnout is real. We understand that stress happens. We understand that it's a long school year. So realize that there are going to be times when you get punched in the face, and hopefully not literally. Hopefully nobody ever puts their hands on you. Definitely not a student, right? But when I'm saying figuratively get punched in the face is like some things don't go according to plan. I'm saying sometimes you feel stressed, you feel overwhelmed, you feel burnt out. So what is your plan, your rebound strategy going to be? How are you going to end up showing up in that school again? Creating a rebound strategy for what happens in the moments where you feel like you've been punched in the face. And the reason why we want to create a rebound strategy is because you want to plan in the good times for what you're going to do when things are not so good. You don't want to wait until things are no longer good, things don't feel well until you're down to then decide what do I need to do to get back up. What I'm saying is, in the good times, maybe right now is a good time for you. For me, I'm feeling great. This would be a good time where you set some time aside to say, okay, I'm happy right now, I'm good, things are going well. What are some of the things that I'm enjoying in this moment? What are some of the things that I enjoy when I'm up? What are some of the things that I like to do when I'm happy? What are some of the things that get me out of the rut? And I'm deciding on that. Where am I going to go? Who am I going to speak to? What activities am I going to do? What's the form of self-care? I think that preventative self-care is a super great strategy, meaning like we're prioritizing things like our well-being and time management and prioritizing tasks and things like that. But there are also some times where there's reactive self-care, where because I'm in a bad mood, I'm going to go do XYZ to make me feel better. I'm going to go for a hike. I'm going to go for a jog. I'm going to eat a tub of ice cream. the people that eat a tub of ice cream, you should also go for a hike or a jog as well. But whatever it is for you, I'm not judging your life. Whatever works for you, what do you need in that moment when you're down that's going to help pull you back up, right? But you decide those in the good times. And actually, my game changing strategy, the tip of the week is to literally write that out and have a plan for when I'm down, so that when you're down, you can just open the notes in your phone and look at the plan that says, yes, I'm going to call my mom. I'm going to get a foot massage while I'm eating a tub of ice cream and binging. I don't want to say any shows because I'm always wrong. People always, Succession, right? That's the show people watch right now. And while I'm binging Succession, right? That's what's going to get me out of this rut, and I'll be good. I'm going to read one of my favorite books. I'm going to listen to one of my favorite podcasts, New Teacher, Big Impact, right? And I'm going to be ready to go back to work on Wednesday. Whatever it is, plan that thing out and be ready, okay? Because everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So you should have a plan once you get punched in the face to help yourself heal. That's my new teacher quick tip of the week. And I hope that segment is helpful. Create your strategy today. The next segment we're diving into, you already know, is the Teacher's Lounge, where I'm going to take a question from an Impact community member and answer it right here. That is going to help you. And this question is, how do we incentivize students when the Taki budget ran out? I'll give you the answer right after this. Question for you. What are you doing on Tuesday night? The answer could be learning the game-changing formula to take control of your career without waiting on administration, without feeling unsupported, and without spending a whole lot of money. You can join us for our free workshop where we are going to unpack the 3D Teacher Success Formula that's going to teach you the one thing that you have to do to take control of your career and become the teacher you've always wanted to be and make the impact you've always wanted to make. It's right inside of your control. All you have to do is click the link in the description below to register for the free workshop, newteacherbigimpact.com/workshop, and I'll see you on Tuesday nights. Time for the Teacher's Lounge, and you know, in this Teacher's Lounge, we're not gossiping, we're not talking about students, we are solution focused. We're bringing your questions and I'm giving you the best answer I could possibly give. And if you want to submit a question to the Teacher's Lounge, it's very, very simple. All you have to do is be a member of Impact, one, and then just submit a question on the wall. I'm going to scroll through and I'll look at them. I'll probably answer the question right there, but then I'll answer the question again here on camera for everybody else who had it. And this question is actually by one of our newer members, Monika. Shout out to you. And Monika asks, what is it that we can do to motivate students when the Taki budget is running low? So I followed up with her and asked her more about that question. She said, you know, I incentivize my students and Takis seem to work. And not Takis, but just some other things. We have a school store. They like Takis. They like Jolly Ranchers. They like, they like when I give them things. And sometimes I'll hold that as an incentive and I'll see that they work for it. They'll work for, if you work for 10 minutes, then you're able to get this Jolly Rancher or whatever it is. And she says, it works. But is this something that I have to continue to do? Do I have to keep buying snacks? Do I have to keep incentivizing them with this? Because I'm coming out of pocket. And we know as teachers, whether you work 5 days a week or 4 days a week, salary is not great. So I'm coming out of pocket to provide these things for students. And is that something I have to always consistently do? And my answer is no, Monika, it is not. And we spoke about this already, but this is actually for everybody else. No, Monika, it is not, because remember, those types of incentives are great for a short period of time. Somebody says that, man, they said motivation is like a shower, right? It's great, but it only lasts for a short period of time before you need another one, right? So with I think it was Zig Ziglar, Jolly Ranchers are great, but it's not gonna make me work forever. It's gonna make me work until I want another Jolly Rancher. Or it's gonna make me work until I no longer feel like working. And then you have to present me with another Jolly Rancher to motivate me yet again, right? But inspiration lasts longer than motivation. Motivation, you can get motivated very quickly, but you can also lose that motivation very quickly. And I think that both have a space to exist, right? That's why motivational speaking is a thing, right? But even for some of the top motivational speakers in the world, they also have like a coaching community, because I'm gonna motivate you. You think about Tony Robbins, you think about Eric Thomas, even people like Brene Brown and things like that. Like, they'll motivate and inspire you from stage, right? But then after you finish listening to the speech a couple of days later, right? You want more. So maybe you listen to another of their speech, you go on YouTube and find something else. But they actually have coaching programs that you can join and be a part of their cohort, where you can have a relationship with them, because you need that ongoing inspiration. What I'm saying is, you don't want to keep spending money on tangible goods over the course of the year. What you can actually do is motivate students intrinsically, because that intrinsic motivation is going to last even longer. And here's how I like to break it down. This is actually taken from chapter 16 of my book, How to Motivate Unmotivated Students. Well, the book is 99% human, 1% amazing. The title of the chapter is How to Motivate Unmotivated Students, and it's chapter 16. And in that chapter, I talk about the fact that every class has 3 groups of students. And I'll walk you through that right here, right now. Every class has 3 groups of students. Group 1 are the students who have a dream, and they know how how your class aligns to that dream. Group 2, they have a dream, but they don't know how your class aligns to their dream. And group 3, they don't have a dream at all, and they don't see why your class matters. So the goal is to get everybody into group 1, right? They have the dream and they know how your class aligns to that dream. And the way that we do that is actually by starting with group number 3. The students that don't have a dream, we have to give them something to dream about. And the way that I like to do that is actually through the use of a process called Ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese word that stands for life's purpose, or means life's purpose, your purpose in life. And walking students through that exercise, again, it's in the book, but we walk students through the exercise by asking them, like, what is your life's purpose? What is the thing that you are inspired by? What were you put on this earth to be able to do? Like, what is your dream? And at first, of course, especially middle school, younger kids are actually going to do better with this. Middle school, high school, sometimes they're like, I don't know. But you got to stick with them. You got to work with them to help them find a dream. What are you good at? What do you like to do? What does the world need more of? And what can you be paid for? When you look at those 4 things, like, you can come away with something, right? Those are the questions that you can ask for Ikigai. And as you're walking through with these students, it does not matter to me, listen to me, y'all. It does not matter to me what the dream is that they walk away with. They just need to walk away with a dream. Somebody says, I want to be a race car driver. Awesome. Somebody says, I want to be a professional basketball player. I want to be a musical artist. I want to be a clay sculptor. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be a gamer. Cool. Listen, I just want you to have a dream. Dreams can change, that's okay. But if you have a dream, something that you are passionate about, something that you love, something that you want to actually do, and that is inspiring, we can use that. When the student has a dream, I can use that. Because remember, there are 3 groups of students. So now when there's a group of students that are in group number 3 that they don't have a dream, if I give them a dream or help them to find their dream, group 3 no longer exists. They move into group 2 where they have a dream, they just might not see how your class aligns to that dream. So now you no longer have 3 groups, you just have 2. Group 1, the students that know that what their dream is and how your class aligns, and now you have group 2, those who have a dream now, but they just don't know how it aligns. Okay, so group 3 is gone because now everybody in your class has a dream. Once those students now have a dream, now let's focus on group 2. They don't know how your class aligns to their dream. I want to be a gamer, right? I want to be a race car driver. I want to be a soccer player. How does your U.S. history class align to that? So what you can do in this sense, sometimes you can let them know, listen, I'm just going to be honest. Maybe the content that I'm teaching is not relevant to your dream in life. Maybe the content is not relevant, right? But the process of what we're doing, the learning that's happening, the character development, the skills formation, what you're learning as a person in this class is going to directly translate to the career that you want to have or to the dream that you want to chase. because problem solving skills, critical thinking, like these skills that you're building in my class, those are the things that you need regardless of where you're going to go. You said you want to be a gamer. You think you don't need to understand how SEO works, search engine optimization, and algorithms work in order to push your content in front of people? You need to be able to market, but you don't necessarily understand human psychology, right? You like, here in my US history class, I'm going to help you understand how to critically think based off of market trends in history, or based off of trends in history, so that you can realize, oh wow, these are market trends in history. History repeats itself. This is what is going to help me to be successful. You see what I'm saying? Like, what we can do is we can show them how our content, or not even necessarily our content, but how their time in our class is gonna help support the dream that they have. Students are willing to struggle for the things that they care about. Once they have a dream, they're gonna be willing to struggle for it. I've seen so many students sleep in class, but they'll do exercises on the basketball team, on the basketball court, the football field with their coaches for hours, sweating, throwing up, all these kinds of stuff. Why? Because they're willing to struggle for things they care about. They just don't care about your class enough because they don't see how it aligns to their dream. But when you align it to their dream, now they care. And now all students are in group one because they have a dream and they see how your class can help them get there. And when you have a classroom full of group one students, you don't have a student engagement problem. All right? Now you can sprinkle some Takis in there as rewards. You can give them some Jolly Ranchers if you want to, but you have a group of students that are actively engaged and ready to work because, if they're being honest, they're working for what they want. And that's how that works. All right, so awesome question, Benika. Thank you for sharing it, and hopefully it was helpful for anybody else as well. Let's transition right into the exit ticket as we land the plane today. As any good teacher would do, let's make sure that I do my check for understanding and make sure that you got what you came to get today. So the question I have for you is, how are you going to decide the need to teach objectives in your content area to prioritize pacing throughout the year? Right? What are the things you need to teach? I got to do this. We have to spend time here. I need to make sure that students get this. How are you going to identify those standards that need the time so that you can pace yourself throughout the year and make sure that you have covered everything that you got, right? Because it is a long year, it's a stressful year. That's why we're gonna create our plan, our rebound strategy, but most importantly, it is a year in which you can be the teacher you've always wanted to be. It is a year that you can have success. It is a year that can be the best year that you've ever had on record, I promise. Once you master this student engagement thing, once you master this lesson planning thing, once you master this classroom management thing, like once you get this differentiation down, come on, like once you get the things that we're teaching and the things that you can learn inside of Impact, when you master the 6 principles of effective instruction, you can be the teacher you've always wanted to be. But most importantly, make the impact that you've always wanted to make. I believe in you, and I know you're gonna make that happen. So again, you can join Impact in the link below. We'd love to see you on the inside of the community. Let's go ahead, let's get out of here. Remember, share this episode, and today I want you to share this episode with somebody who's been punched in the mouth. All right, somebody knows what it's like to be punched in the mouth. I don't know, maybe this will make them feel better. Either way, like, share, subscribe, leave comments, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. See you on the next one.